75.
75 within the school. But because it's voluntary, we did not want to go with a number. There's one school that has approximately, I guess about 75%, and I don't know the size of the school, but about 75% of the teachers are participating in FIRST. And that is the school where it has a CSEP program. The principal is excited. He is really, really clear on what the expectations are and has been extremely successful. His concern is the number of evaluations and the change in the format of the evaluations. There are two in-classroom evaluations that are done. And so the principal and or assistant principal, they have to do those evaluations. And it's not to just go in, sit for 15 minutes, I'm going to check the box, and that's it. It's really about having a dialogue around what areas within the domains that you're working on, how you're going, what you can expect to see, the changes that should occur, writing up the reflective pieces, the teacher is doing that, and then the principal being able to sit down and have discussion around those reflective pieces. So it's a very different process. And one of the things that many of the principals are saying is, I just don't have the time. But when you think about what that does to the climate in the school, it's imperative to make that time.
So,
Okay.
So actually, the percentage.
So we as high as 75%,
Yeah.
and in some schools we have 7 participants. Only seven teachers who have decided. And that was in a school where there was problems with the principal. The principal left us. There was a new principal that was brought on from outside of the state, was not familiar with Maryland, was not familiar with the represented environment, and came in with a very cavalier attitude, and it's been really, really a challenge for both the teacher as well as the principal in that school. So that kind of environment is not conducive to something like this.
Oh, my name is Tony, and excuse the outburst, but I had to me that was exciting, you know, because, like, you know, Dr. Johnson, I've been coming here for years, and I think you're probably the first one that mentioned anything about counselors, right? So I had a cheer and jump. I would have jumped up and clapped and stuff. But I mean, having been a former teacher, you know, that's a great thing you're doing with teachers too. But I just think it's disappointing that that the counselors weren't included in this process. So I really didn't have a question. It was just, I just think it's very disappointing, and especially coming from, you know, it sends a bad message to counselors as well. I think we're coming from a program here with it's strong in the Transforming the School Counseling Initiative, and then, you know, the reality I think sometimes for counselors is that they go to these school districts, and I don't think they're valued as much as we think
Well,
they are.
let me say 2 things. We are looking for grant dollars to support other members within the school, and specifically those that provide support to the teachers. And we recognize the importance. I mean, the fact that it was the task force, the teachers' task force, that identified the fact that the media specialists and counselors should be a part of this program. The other piece is that one of the things that we had to look at when we were looking at why we wanted to write this grant, one of the things that we knew is that we had to have something that was going to improve the overall effectiveness of teaching in our classroom. And we felt that if we identified a process that was going to bring teacher and principal together to identify practices that impact student performance, that's how we were going to get the change that we were looking for. And in that process, we were going to give principals the ability to give constructive feedback around effective teaching. And that was the goal of the instrument that we were looking for. Not just to simply say you're a good teacher or you're a bad teacher, but what do you have to do to become an effective teacher? And that was our goal.
I have a question. I don't know if this is relevant right now, so you might not answer, but what do you do if the principal isn't if you evaluate the principal and how the principal is doing the evaluations, and if they're able to determine or aren't able to determine what good teaching is in the classroom, what do you do then when you're planning on implementing this throughout the school district or county, and you're seeing that the principals and the teachers aren't really...
Well, let me say to you, the framework for teaching provides you with behavioral examples, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the book with me this evening, and what I'll do is I'll send it to Stephanie and let you see how concise and how they break down the behaviors that are associated with good teaching. And for me, when you have a behaviorally based instrument that talks about this is what unsatisfactory behaviors look like, this is what basic behaviors look like, this is what proficient teaching looks like in this particular area, and this is what outstanding or distinguished is the term that's used in Danielson. This is what it looks like. That gives you an opportunity to have a point of reference when you're talking with a teacher and you're asking for improvement in a specific area. So it takes away from me saying, well, you know, Dr. Brown, I don't think that you really communicated very well. You know, you have behavioral kinds of information
And
that
the
you're
teacher
sharing.
knows exactly
And
why
the
the
teacher
principal
knows
is valuing them that
exactly
way.
why they're being evaluated.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we, John, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to give the did you still have a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I want to give an opportunity for the next speaker to come on, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask more questions at the end.
Certainly. I have maybe two things that you talked about that I just want to hear more about, and maybe you're going to touch on it further on in your presentation. But you mentioned the design, and I understand the Danielson model is focused on behaviors, but what steps did you all take in the design to, I guess, walk that tightrope between something that's a complementary task that the teacher has to do and something that really becomes kind of de facto part-time job? And so no longer an incentive, but pay for these extra things that you're doing.
Well, you know, that becomes some of the components that are related to the professional growth and development. We were able to help people identify those kinds of things that they felt were going to allow them